But in contrast to both paintings, when Rembrandt produced this etching about 1632, he struck a deeper chord. He reached something of the miraculous event in a truer, less theatrical fashion. Oh, it's dramatic. It is as overtly dramatic as his painting, but it's subtler and more movingly mysterious. Now Christ is in the foreground, not in the background facing us, but in the foreground, placed on one side, slightly left of center, his hand again raised commandingly, but into the picture, not out in our direction. His gesture seems to generate the broad sweep of light that floods the space. At least that's the first reading. One follows from his hand to the raised hand that answers it, as it were, from one of the onlookers, this man who seems to be standing up abruptly in the distance, but is positioned on the page at the lower right. The movement is down and back into space, down from left to right and back into space from the foreground at the same time. So strong is that connection between hands, between Christ's hand and this man's hand, that it takes perhaps another moment before we see Lazarus just below the group of witnesses who are around that man. Here is Lazarus' head, no upstretched hands like the Levens, and no B-movie overstatement as in Rembrandt's painted Lazarus with the ghastly face. Instead, Rembrandt gives us just a young, emaciated, stunned-looking head, his left hand resting lifelessly on the edge of the grave. He looks at no one, although one of his sisters here seems nearly ready to fly into the grave in her astonishment. She's touchingly young, and her response is human, not histrionic, not staged. The extraordinary arched format of this etching is used, I think, to gather the shadows together among the draperies at the top. There are suspended objects here, too, as in his painting, so that the life-giving light falling on Lazarus is more potent. And consider, both Christ and the gesturing man are lit from the front. So now rethink the light. Does it emanate from the left, from Christ's hand? Or does it emanate from the right? It almost seems as though it emanates from the tomb itself, because it illuminates the front of Christ and the group to the right, especially the man with his hand up. And by the way, one long fold of the drapery suspended from the top of the cave points down right at Lazarus below. There's one other aspect of the etching that deserves mention, and that's the fact that Christ gestures with his left hand. Now, of course, this is the result of the printing of the etched plate, reversing the image etched into it. Now, etchers often neglect to anticipate these reversals. Rembrandt's signature is often reversed in his prints. But sometimes they take care to accommodate that reversal and to draw in reverse so that it will come out in a particular way. And I want to show you this etching in its correct sense, as you've been looking at it here, but compared with the reversed image, achieved simply by flipping the photograph. The correct image that we've been looking at is on the left, the reversed image on the right. Now, in a way, I'm doing this for my own interest, testing, because is it only because I've known this etching for so long that I find the reversal on the right-hand side very unsatisfactory, despite the fact that Christ is right-handed now? Now, I think that it is unsatisfactory, and I think Rembrandt wanted Christ to be on the left of the printed image so that the light would gather on the right, which is more traditional, and I think he wanted the commanding raised hand, bringing him back to life, to be on the far side of the head of Christ so that it would not block the head and so that it would not be as theatrical as the gesture in the painting of Rembrandt had been. Therefore, the reversal was inevitable. Rembrandt had to settle for a left-handed Christ in order to realize his compositional and expressive intention. This etching, his largest, was made in Amsterdam